This video is brought to you by Moft. The new Apple Watch Series 11 comes in two sizes, the 42mm version and the 46mm version. But which one should you get? Well, today I've got both sizes here to compare side by side. I will show you how each of them looks on my wrist. We'll also see what the difference is in WatchOS 26 between them, and I'll break down the pros and cons of each size. So at the end of this video, you'll know exactly which size is right for you. But first, I am giving away this brand new iPhone 17. For a chance to win, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to this channel, and subscribe to my second channel, TechBook by Dion, link in the description. Then comment your favorite feature of the Apple Watch Series 11 along with your Instagram username, and follow me on Instagram at Dion Schuddeboom, where I'll announce the winner on the 31st of October. Briefly, I want to talk about my spec and why I chose it, as when you're buying an Apple Watch, particularly now with the Series 11, there are so many different options to choose from the band to the watch case, and you really want to make sure you choose the right combination. And this, for me, I think is the ultimate spec for the Series 11. Let me tell you why. So first of all, in terms of the watch case, as you can see, I decided to go with the aluminum watch case in the jet black finish. I really like this finish. It's got this nice polished look. And then to pair it with the watch case, I have the good old sports band in black. Now, this right here is my recommended spec for the Apple Watch Series 11. It hasn't changed much over the years, and that is because I think this here is the ultimate combination. Why? Well, because this is going to look at home in both more casual as well as formal settings, and the black color is just more versatile, particularly on the watch case. It's even more versatile, I think, too, than the new space gray color, because I really think this polished look gives it a nice sort of luxurious feel that the other matte aluminum colors don't. And again, because it is black, it's going to pair with any outfit that you wear in terms of the colors, as well as different bands. Speaking of the band, the sports band I think is a great place to start. It's sort of the ultimate starter band. It is super comfortable on the wrist. It is very light, never gets in the way. And what I also like is it is super easy to clean. So if you do wear it for working out, you can quickly detach the band, put it in some dish soap and some water, leave it overnight to then clean the band. Now, one more thing about the band is the sports band will come in two versions. You have the regular or sort of classic buckle version that I have here, as well as the solo loop version. Now, personally, I recommend you go for the good old buckle version for its adjustability, right? The solo loop is nice, but it does mean you have to get the perfect fit when you purchase it. And the reality is your wrist will switch in size over time, right? So during warmer seasons like the summer, or say when you're working out, your wrist will expand a little bit. It'll be a bit larger, whereas in the winter, it'll be a bit slimmer. So having a band that is just so easy to adjust with all these different holes to really find the perfect fit, I think is a big plus. So there you have it. That is, in my opinion, the ultimate spec for the Apple Watch Series 11. Once again, that is the jet black finish on the aluminum watch case. I don't really think it's worth paying for the titanium case unless you really want it, as the functionality between the aluminum case and the titanium case is the same. And then pair it with the black sports band. Now, in terms of pricing, they are pretty much the same. That's going to be $399 for the 42mm version, and then $429 for the 46mm version. So we get a very small difference in price, but a pretty large difference in how they wear and feel. And as always, I will leave the purchase links to both Apple Watches down in the description. Okay, so before I put the watches on my wrist, let's see how they compare off wrist, as of course, that is going to be the differences in the design. And right away, you can see a pretty large difference in size. So the 46mm version here on the right is going to be 4mm taller and 3mm wider compared to the 42mm version. And I will say you do notice the difference in height more between the two. And then flipping them over to the side here, you'll see that the thickness is the same. They're both 9.7mm, so the 46mm version is actually not thicker, and the thickness here on the Series 11s is going to be the same as on the Series 10. However, if you're coming from an older, say Series 9, 8, or 7, the Series 11 will be around 10% thinner, which is always nice, as it means it wears a little bit lower on the wrist. So the differences in height as well as width may sound small, and they kind of are, but on a product that is already small, these differences do really add up. And I will say that the 42mm version does sit more comfortably on the wrist. It's going to be easier to, say, slide under the cuff, particularly gentlemen if you often wear a suit. And then in terms of the buttons, the digital crown and the side button is going to be the same size, as well as here the speaker on the left. And I also found that the performance of the speakers are the same. And then in terms of weight, the 42mm version comes in at 29.7 grams, and the 46mm version will come in at 36.9 grams. So this is a very minor difference that you don't really feel on the wrist. Now, before I show you how these watches look on my wrist, no matter which size Apple Watch you choose, it deserves a band that looks just as sharp as the watch itself. And that is where the Snap Duo watch band from Moft comes in. Each band features a clever dual color design that can be styled in 4 different ways to match your mood, outfit, or occasion. And don't stress about installing it, you literally can't do it wrong. Keep it professional for work, go bold at the gym, or mix and match when you're out and about. The band uses a strong magnetic closure, making it quick, secure, and endlessly adjustable. And that is important because depending on the season and your level of activity, your wrist will fluctuate in size. With the magnetic closure, you get the perfect fit instantly and every time. No fiddling around with outdated band mechanisms. On the wrist, it feels light, smooth, and premium thanks to its soft pebbled silicone, combining all-day comfort with a sophisticated look. Choose from 5 high-quality dual-color designs, unlocking endless style combos. Seriously, this band has more outfit combos than I've got in my entire closet. The Snap Duo watch band is the perfect complement to the Moft ecosystem. So give your Apple Watch the band it deserves via the link in the description and use code DION10 for 10% off your order at Moft. Alright, let's go ahead and put the watches on the wrist so I can show you how they compare and talk you through the pros and cons. Now, to put this into context, I have 155mm wrist, or around 6.1 inches. That is measuring in the circumference, so you can kind of compare to your wrist as I will put these measurements and these visuals here into context. So here we go. I've got the 46mm version on my right wrist and the 42mm version here on the left. Okay, so right away, as you can see, the difference is quite substantial. So looking at the larger 46mm version, you'll see that the watch case isn't much smaller than the width of my wrist, having only a few millimeters to spare, where by comparison, the 42mm version, you'll see it's more proportionate, where the watch case has more room compared to the width of my wrist. And I also found that because the 46mm version has a larger watch case, the band, if we look at the sides of the case, does stick out a little bit more compared to the smaller 42mm version. Now, I will say this difference is not as significant as it was on previous Apple Watches, but it does mean that the 42mm version does sit just even more flush on the wrist. Now, what I will say, if I have my arms on my desk and if I rotate them sideways here, on neither watch does the watch case bang up against the table. This is important for durability and also means that it won't make any noise. Again, I don't really feel the difference in weight at all, but what I do feel is a difference in bulk. So when you combine the larger width and height of the 46mm version, when I'm moving around, just moving my hand, picking things up, shaking someone's hand, whatever it may be, I do feel the 46mm version more on my wrist. Now, that's not to say it's uncomfortable, but the 42mm version, after a while, you just kind of forget it's even there. It's just more unobtrusive. And again, like I said earlier, because the 42mm version does sit lower on the wrist, it is going to be easier to, say, slide under the cuff, especially if you wear a suit or, say, longer sleeves and you want to just tuck your watch away. The 42mm version will be a better size for that. So at the end of the day, which size you choose really comes down to personal preference, well, and of course, your wrist size. I would say if your wrists are similar to mine in size, I would lean towards the 42mm version. While I do think that both look okay and can certainly work, I think the 42mm version just looks a little bit more proportionate, especially ladies, you may have a smaller wrist too. The 42mm version will look more elegant, more like a timepiece, and less, say, like a computer or a gadget on your wrist. But let me know in the comments, which size do you think looks best? Okay, so we know now that if your wrist is similar in size to mine, chances are the 42mm version will be the better fit and look more proportionate. But the question is, does the larger 46mm version have any advantages? And the answer is, well, yes, it does. Thanks to having, of course, a larger display, it has more pixels. And this means that at a given time, you'll see more menus, text will be a bit larger, and it will be more comfortable to use compared to the smaller 42mm version. But I will say, in testing, compared to previous generations of the Apple Watch, like the Series 9, 8, 7, the difference between the two sizes on the Series 11 isn't as drastic as it was before. Where previously, at the time, the larger 45mm version saw significantly more lines in text and also larger text, where this year, the larger 46mm version by default gets a little bit more text, but there's more emphasis on making that text larger and icons larger for better reading comfort. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by comparing some apps. Starting off here with the watch face. So I've chosen a very data-rich watch face, and as you can see, the amount of data in the complications on the corners is going to be the same on both sizes. So it's not like you get more information on the larger size as opposed to the smaller size, but of course, everything is going to be a little bit larger on the 46mm version, right? The small complications in the corners, as well as the subdials here on the watch face, will be just a little bit larger on the 46mm version. And then if we swipe up to check out the today view, you'll see that the view is very similar, and you can see that both phones here, or both watches here, will show 2 cards at a time. So no more on the 46mm version. And then taking a look at the home screen, you'll see that we have the same amount of apps, but the icons will be larger on the 46mm version. This will make it easier to, of course, open apps that may be in the corner, or rather the edges of your display. And let's launch an application here. So let's jump into settings. You'll see that we have the same number of menus here shown, but the bottom option will be a little bit legible, and again, easier to reach on the 46mm version, but the difference here is not that substantial. And as I'm scrolling through here, you'll see that the text is remarkably similar in size in this scenario. Again, just slightly bigger buttons here on the 46mm version, and the same goes here if we jump into a sub menu. See, we have the same number of options shown. So this really goes to show what I mentioned earlier, where with WatchOS 26, Apple has made the differences between the two sizes definitely a lot less apparent compared to previously, where you see that the functionality in terms of the number of menus and buttons and things are actually very similar. And here I've pulled up a message on both Apple Watches where, as you can see, it's a very similar story. So both messages, or both watches, are able to display the entire text message, both from start to end without needing to scroll, which is again a big jump up compared to previous versions of the Apple Watch. The difference is though that again the text is a little bit larger on the 46mm version. You'll see that the sentences are also a bit longer because the display is a bit wider. For example, here the word they here that will fit in the same line, where on the 42mm it has to be cut off to move over to the next line. But again, there's no sacrifice in terms of the amount of text shown, or I should say very small difference, where it still shows the entire text on the display. Now, if you want to respond to a message, we can tap on the SMS button here. And as you can see, the on-screen keyboard will be available on both sizes, so also on the smaller 42mm version. And of course, it will be nicer to type on the 46mm version, but both are going to be, well, difficult to do and are really meant for a couple of words. But it is nice to have this function on both Apple Watches. But if you do find yourself using this often, the larger 46mm version here will definitely have an advantage. And here I also wanted to briefly show you what Maps looks like. This is, of course, a great feature on the Apple Watch to get your directions right on your wrist. And of course, the larger display on the series, on the 46mm version, will also enable you to see more roads on screen at a time, and reading things like street names will be just a little bit more comfortable and easier to do. But again, I am really impressed by how well the 42mm version, despite its still small display, is keeping up here compared to the larger 46mm version. But this here just gives you an idea of how the two compare. But I think Apple have done a great job at optimizing watchOS here for both display sizes. So at the end of the day, looking both at how they wear on the wrist as well as watchOS, the question is which size Apple Watch is going to be best? Well, at the end of the day, it is important to remember that both the 42mm version here on my left wrist as well as the 46mm versions have the exact same functionality, the same performance, the same features, and yes, even the same battery. Yes, the battery in the 46mm version is going to be a bit larger, but it also has a larger display which will consume more battery. So in the end, it kind of balances out, and both watches here give me all-day battery life. So which size is best for who? Well, I would say that the 42mm version is going to be the more comfortable wear. It is also, I think, the more proportionate look, especially if your wrist is similar in size to mine. It's also going to be a little bit more affordable, whereas the 46mm version is going to be just a little bit more comfortable to use and to interact with, right? With its larger icons, larger text, it will be a little bit easier to read, albeit with a slightly more bulky feel on the wrist. My advice, if your wrist is close to 155 millimeters or around 6 inches or below, I would go with the 42mm versions, and if your wrists are bigger, I would suggest going for the 46mm version. And well, there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I'll leave the purchase links down in the description. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you check out my Apple Watch First Things to Do video. This will show you how to set up your watch after you buy it. Trust me, this is worth a watch as it's going to help you unlock hidden features, help your battery life last longer, and ultimately get the most out of your Apple Watch. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.